Hello, Mr. and Mrs. America and all the ships at sea. It is your friendly neighborhood scene writers back to tell you what's coming up in the Tulsa World scene, available at newsstands everywhere and at tulsaworld.com. My name is Jim Watts. I'm here with my colleague, Jimmie Tramel, who has a bit of sport history and movie present news to talk about.
Yeah, I've switched from the sports department to the entertainment department in 2014. And so sometimes your worlds collide. And as it turns out, John Starks, the great Tulsa basketball player who went on to stardom with the New York Knicks, has a new documentary about his life called Keep Shooting, which will be shown next week at the Circle Cinema Film Festival. So I was tickled to have a chance to talk to John Starks again. I don't know, for people who haven't met John Starks, his heart had carried him to the NBA, in that he was such a feisty guy that, New Yorkers loved him because he backed down from no one, Michael Jordan or anyone. But also his heart is behind this documentary. This is a guy who has done a lot of things for a lot of people through his foundation. And I'll mention this in the story I write Friday, but the softer side of his heart is why this documentary even exists. But John Starks was always great to me during his time in the NBA. I always had his home number I could call if I needed John for anything. He actually gave us the scoop when he went to the Utah Jazz, and we had this for everybody else, and everybody wondered, how's the Tulsa paper having this first? But thanks to John. I appreciate John. It was great to talk to him again. Look forward to seeing him next week at the Circle Cinema Film Festival.
Well, I remember him doing, or sponsoring at least, those 3-on-3 basketball tournaments. Was that done as a charity thing? Aha, of course you would have one.
Yeah. It was through, it benefited the John Starks Foundation. And okay. Those were such a thing back in the day, and I can't remember if it also went to Catholic Charities or not, but it definitely benefited John Starks Foundation. And I'm glad you bring this up, because I got out there early one morning where all these goals were set up in the streets of downtown Tulsa. Early, and John Starks is out there. And coming out, he didn't wake up and get there. He'd been up all night setting up these basketball goals. Oh. So this is not somebody who's going to put his name on something and then delegate everything to people. John's hands-on and has always been a real down-to-earth guy.
Well, good. I'm looking forward to it. We'll also have next week in the weekend section a story about the Circle Cinema Film Festival and all the things that are going to be included there, including the film about Greenwood by one of our former colleagues, photographer Kelly Kerr. That's going to be part of it as well. So look for that in the coming days. If you have any interest in guitars or stringed instruments, I would make it a point to go to 108 Contemporary, the gallery in the Tulsa Arts District, just across from the Guthrie Green, next door to the Woody Guthrie Center. They have got an exhibit called A Luthier's Tale, The Craft of Stringed Instruments. And it's a collection of guitars, banjos, violins, cellos, basses, most of which have some kind of, are either made by Tulsa guitar makers or have some kind of Oklahoma or Tulsa connection. One of the instruments that will probably get the most attention is the Cain's Ballroom guitars, or guitars, singular. It's made by a guy named Roger Cowan, who runs a company called Dog Tired Guitars out of Perkins. And he reclaimed floorboards from the original dance floor of the Cain's Ballroom and constructed a guitar out of it. The front of it, has all of the scrapes and dents that come from being danced on for dozens of years. While the back has you can still see the imprint from the sawmill that made the boards.
What a thing to have, though.
Oh, it's awesome. It's really a neat looking thing. It's done on the shape of it is modeled after a Fender Telecaster, and the pick guard is made out of a Bob Wills vinyl record. So there's a lot of history to it, but there's a lot of just really beautiful instruments, handmade. It just shows you the level of artistry that goes into making something that, you know, we kind of take for granted as just always being there. These are really neat things. And that runs through middle of September.
I feel like that's some kind of magic artifact, or I can't play an instrument. I don't know if you can, but it feels like if I were to pick that up, it would just start playing itself almost.
Almost, yeah. I refer to myself as a guitar owner as opposed to a player. But I've always been fascinated by guitars, and so this was going through this. It's not a huge exhibit, but the curator who we interviewed is a man named Benjamin Liggett. Has a good eye for interesting things, and like I said, a lot of them are either made by Tulsans or they have some sort of Tulsa connection. Like most of the violins and cellos and stringed instruments of that nature have a connection to the Tulsa Violin Shop and its owner Lou Lynch, who's been repairing and restoring and selling stringed instruments for decades here in town. So it's worth checking out.
Well, let's stick with some Tulsa history here, Tulsa music history here. You're familiar with this bunch, right?
I might even want to buy their diamond ring.
Okay. It's so funny. My daughter asked me the other day what stories I was working on. And I said, well, do you know who Jerry Lewis is? And she had no idea who Jerry Lewis was, because he's obviously big star of age difference. But anyhow, I had to go and explain that I was writing about Jerry Lewis's son, Gary Lewis, who was in the band, front of the band, Gary Lewis and the Playboys. She says, oh, I have heard of them. So it was kind of opposite what you would expect. But she's a music person anyway. But anyhow, Gary Lewis will be 75 the last day of this month. And because it's his milestone birthday coming up, I contacted him and I said, hey, would you want to talk about your Tulsa music connections? And he couldn't have been nicer. And I thought his music connections were only that he had Tulsans in his band. But it turns out that Leon Russell arranged every hit the band ever had, and had no idea about this. After Gary Lewis got out of the Army, he spent about 5 years of his life in Tulsa. That lived over by 21st and Zunis, which is really kind of cool. So Sunday story about Gary Lewis and all of his Tulsa connections.
Okay, sounds good. Well, let's see. If you are hungry, we have some places that we can recommend. Our last review was of the Cherry Street Cafe, which moved from 15th Street to 5th and Boulder downtown, a block away from the Tulsa World Newsroom, by the way. They do breakfast and lunch and do a very good job of it. I believe they earned 3.5 stars. Breakfast is really, really good. They have a variety of hot and cold sandwiches for lunch, and they're very worth checking out. Upcoming, we will have a review of Restaurant Basque, which is in the Tulsa Arts District. It's owned by Amelia Easley, who founded Amelia's Woodfire Kitchen, and it's just a couple of doors down from there. It specializes in the cuisine of the Basque the Basque area of northern Spain, kind of moves into France, and it's food that's pretty much unlike any you'll find anywhere else. They're very conscientious about sourcing stuff, all their ingredients as much as possible from Spain. The olive oils, the vinegars, the hams, all of that they import, and it's designed to be everything is designed to be shared. So it's entirely different dining experience besides being food that's not quite like anything you'll find around here. So that'll be coming up later in the week. So something to look out for. Let's see. I think that covers what we've got coming up.
Yeah, I also got a Friday story about a girl from Jinx, Oklahoma, who is a star in the K-pop genre. And if you're not sure exactly what K-pop is, well, she'll tell you what that is. But that's mainly it.
She's a Tulsa native.
She attended high school in Jinx, graduated in 15, and is K-pop is Korean pop music with a lot of choreography and other things.
Right.
And she is an established star in K-pop from Jinx.
Oh, okay. Well, you learn something every day.
There you go.
Well, we hope that you got a little something out of what we had to share. And so for my colleague, Jimmie Tramel, and myself, we will gladly see you later. Take care.
Goodbye.
For more information, you can visit tulsaworld.com.